age 6 to 23 months, progress, challenges, and emerging issues. Our chairpersons are Vandana Krishna, Director General, State Nutrition Mission, Government of Maharashtra; Dr. Rakesh Kumar, Joint Secretary, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Government of India; and also Dr. Victor Aguayo, Regional Nutrition Advisor, UNICEF Regional Office for South Asia.
Important discussions going on there. Do we start? Okay. Hello. Good morning to all of you, and welcome to our very first session on setting the scene, meeting the nutrient needs of infants and young children aged 6 to 23 months, progress, challenges, and emerging issues. So, we are going to have 3 speakers. Let me introduce our first speaker, Professor Kim Michelson from the University of Copenhagen. Professor Michelson is a professor in pediatric nutrition at the Department of Nutrition, Exercise and Sports, Faculty of Science, University of Copenhagen. Kim has established the research group, Pediatric and International Nutrition at the department, which at present consists of 16 scientific employees. The group has projects in several countries such as Denmark, Ethiopia, Cambodia, Kenya, and Uganda, mainly on early nutrition. He is also advisor to the Danish Health Authority on IYCF and has been a temporary advisor and consultant for WHO on several aspects of IYCF. Professor Kim Michelson.
Thank you very much for the kind invitation. I'm honored to be invited to give this presentation at this important meeting. I'm also happy to be in India. I have been in India at least 12 times. Started when I was very young, and I've done a lot of photography in India, so I'll spice up my presentation with a few photos from India. I was also impressed this morning by the achievements that has been done in India on complementary feeding, especially in Maharashtra, and I'm looking very much forward to discuss all these aspects with you. As you heard in the introduction, I am more a researcher than a policy person, but I'm looking forward to discuss policy with you. The studies we are doing in Denmark are also focusing on the first years of life, but there, of course, the aspect is obesity, how to prevent obesity, and I think some of these aspects that I will also cover are important also in countries in transition, where you have the double burden and where obesity is going to be a problem. I don't need to talk much about these. We are talking about the 6 to 24 months, what happens between breast milk and family foods. And the main topics I will cover in this presentation are the relation to stunting, the WHO guidelines, responsive feeding and food preferences. We already heard a little about it, and I think it's important. Energy density and bulk, fat content and quality, nutrient density, very important, and animal source food can contribute to that. And then briefly on efficacy and effectiveness of complementary feeding interventions, but I think that'll be the issue for this conference. And then I will finish off with a little on obesity, how complementary feeding also can help preventing obesity later on. We have heard about the first 1,000 days, and to this audience I don't need to go into detail, but again say that the 6 to 24 month period is an important part of the first 1,000 days. We can save a lot of lives if we can optimize it. We can reduce the risk of non-communicable diseases such as diabetes, and we can also improve educational achievements and earning potentials. That has been shown in several analyses. In the Lancet series, where they estimated what would the effects of scaling up be, they estimated that if we were scaling up complementary feeding and getting appropriate complementary feeding, we could save approximately 100,000 deaths a year globally. So there's something to work on. All of you might have seen this before. These are global data. It's standard deviation scores relating to the WHO reference or standards. And if you focus on the length for age, the stunting, you can see that it goes down, and especially during the 6 to 24 month period, that's where it develops. It's not everything we can do within that period. Nutrition during pregnancy is also an important programming effect on linear growth, but we can do something with complementary feeding. And you can see after 24 months, the velocity, and there's no further change in standard deviation scores here, meaning that they actually grow at the same rate as in the WHO growth standards. So it's an important period we are talking about. And the outcomes, we have talked a lot about optimal status, growth and development. That is important. It's a sensitive period for programming, stunting and wasting. And I will also come in and talk a little about preventing of obesity. And I think the complementary feeding, we should also start to think about that in countries in transition. I participated in a project, a WHO and Gates Foundation project on healthy growth, and we published recently this paper where we tried to contextualize complementary feeding in a broader framework for stunting prevention. And the focus there was on stunting, and of course there are other aspects of complementary feeding. So when we were there talking about inadequate complementary feeding, we talked about poor quality of foods, inadequate practices, and I will cover those two aspects, but also food and water safety, and that's an area I will not go into depth with, but that is also important. And this is the central part of this framework, where stunted growth and development, stunted development is an important outcome, and you have long-term and short-term effects on this, and I will not go into the details of these. Then the causes of stunted growth and stunted development is, in addition to the inadequate complementary feeding, it's also breastfeeding, it's sanitation,